What's up? Welcome to God is Glamorous. My name is Johanna, where we learn how to live our best lives through Jesus Christ. And today we are talking all about leadership. So, why are we talking about leadership this week? Well, number one, the presidential election is right around the corner. It's actually next week. So if you are in the middle of determining who you want to be the next president, hopefully this video may win you over. And number two, we're all about entrepreneurship, and chances are you have a business or you're starting a company, and you have to be a great leader. You have to determine what are the best steps that you can take within your company or within your role. And being a leader requires you to be optimistic, you have to be understanding, you have to be able to relate to your team, and more importantly, you have to be able and willing to be led by God, and you have to be willing to submit, because a true leader is often a follower as well. So a leader knows when to follow, and a true leader is someone that is able to listen and to take direction. So we're going to be examining the top 5 character qualities and the personality traits of a great leader by taking a look at the leaders in the Bible. So the Bible has so many examples of what a true leader is, what is a great leader. And we've seen some great leaders within the Bible. So we've seen Moses, we've seen Noah, we've seen Joseph, we've seen Abraham. Those were some really great leaders. King David was a great leader. And then we've seen some bad leaders. Pharaoh was a bad leader. We're going to be talking about King Rehoboam. He was a bad leader, and there's just so many kinds of bad leaders within the Bible as well, that God often times overthrown their position just because they weren't leading in a way that was good. King Saul was also a bad leader. And we're going to be taking a look at those characteristics and those quality traits of the good leaders and the bad leaders. But the most important leader that we're going to be taking a look at is Jesus, because Jesus was the ultimate leader and is definitely someone that we can take all kinds of examples from. So let's get started. Let's talk about the top 5 character qualities of a great leader. So the first quality of a great leader means that you truly have a heart to serve. So we are going to be taking a look at Jesus, because Jesus had the ultimate heart to serve. In fact, in Matthew chapter 20, verse 28, it says, "Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as ransom for many." So Jesus was the ultimate servant, and throughout his life, he is constantly giving, and giving. So he is healing the blind, he is raising people from the dead, he is performing miracles, and as a great leader, you should definitely have this heart to serve as well. So one of the reasons why people enter leadership positions or want to run for public office is because they want the fame and they want the fortune and they want to be in the limelight and they want the big salary. But that's not one of the ways in which you can truly be a great leader. A great leader has a heart to serve. A great leader gives back. A great leader listens to their people. A great leader is someone that truly wants to solve problems. So Jesus gave the best example of how you're able to be a great leader by washing his disciples' feet. So I always say that everyone wants to be great, but no one wants to wash anyone's feet. And this is exactly what Jesus did with his disciples during the Last Supper. Jesus humbled himself and washed his disciples' feet. And this was something that was seen as a slave's job during that time, where people wore sandals and they were trekking through the road, and their feet often got dirty right when they entered their home, and right before they began to eat, the slave or the servant would come and wash everyone's feet. But Jesus, the Son of God, this incredible leader, he humbled himself and he started to wash everyone's feet. So check out this verse. In John chapter 13, verses 14 through 17, it says, "Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them." So this is such a powerful verse, and essentially Jesus is saying that because I washed your feet, let me be an example, and you go and wash someone else's feet. And this is what we should do as believers, not physically wash anyone's feet. If you're into that kind of thing, I don't know. But it just simply means just to be a servant and just to serve, do the jobs that are not necessarily respected. If you have to clean something, if you have to sweep something, if you have to get your hands dirty, do the job. Don't necessarily ask someone to do something that you wouldn't necessarily do. I believe a true leader will never ask someone to do anything that they aren't willing to do themselves. So that is an example of a great leader, to just truly have a heart to serve, give back, and truly care about someone else. So when you do that and when you have a heart to serve, that is one of the first steps in order to be a great leader. So the second quality of a great leader is the fact that they are wise and they know how to make just decisions. And this is so important, especially in our day and age where we're seeing all kinds of racial tension and racial divide, and Democrats versus Republicans, and the NSARS movement, and justice for Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd, and all kinds of people. A true leader knows how to unite, and they know how to make decisions, and they know how to bring justice to people. So we're going to be taking a look at King Solomon, the wisest king that ever lived. And King Solomon was someone that just made really incredible and really, really wise decisions. And we're going to be taking a look at the story of how King Solomon made a difficult decision in determining who was going to get justice. So we're going to be taking a look at the story when King Solomon had to make a very, very difficult decision. So the story starts off with two women. They lived together, and they both had babies, and they also lived in separate rooms. So the first woman, she actually unfortunately rolled over her baby and actually killed the baby. But during the night, she swapped babies with the other woman. And when the other woman woke up, she was like, wait, this is not my baby. And she goes to the other woman, she's like, you took my baby. And she's like, no, I didn't. This is mine. So they go to King Solomon, and they're like, they tell King Solomon the story. And King Solomon was like, okay, this is how we're going to solve that. Bring me a sword. And they bring King Solomon a sword, and he's like, all right, so we'll just cut the baby in half, and you can take one half of the baby, and you can take the other half of the baby. And the woman who truly was the mother, she said, no, don't kill the baby, just give it to her. And the other woman was like, yes, divide it into, now neither of us will have the baby. And King Solomon said, you're the mom, because you graciously gave over that baby to the other woman. That baby belongs to you. So they said, give the woman her baby, that is her baby. And when people heard this story, they were astonished. They were like, wow, this man truly has all kinds of wisdom. This man truly is a man of God, because this man knows how to make just decisions. So the true characteristic of a great leader is someone who is wise and knows how to make just decisions. But in fact, the Bible tells us that anyone can have wisdom as long as they ask for it. So check this out. So in James chapter 1, verse 5, it says, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given. So if you are someone who lacks wisdom as a leader and you need help learning how to make those really wise and just decisions, it says it in the Bible that wisdom is free and God gives it to anyone who asks. So all you have to do is ask and you shall receive. Also, if you're stuck between who you should vote for in this upcoming election, ask yourself, does my presidential candidate make wise and just decisions? If they don't, you should probably reevaluate. So the third quality of a great leader is the fact that they have integrity. So a true leader is not someone who is easily swayed by money. So especially in the political era, in the political field, there are a lot of people that are swayed by money. There are presidents that are making decisions based on monetary values and transactions, and a great leader is not easily swayed by money. In fact, they aren't swayed by money at all. So we're going to be taking a look at the ultimate leader, Jesus, and how Jesus displayed the utmost integrity. So Jesus actually, there's a story where Jesus goes into a temple in Jerusalem, and when he goes into the temple, he sees tons of people just making a marketplace out of God's temple. So they are selling sacrificial animals, they are converting currency, and it's just a hot mess. So Jesus gets so upset. I think this is the only time where we see Jesus so mad that he flips over a table. But Jesus gets so mad, he flips over tables, and he says, you're literally making my Father's house a den of thieves. And he tells everyone to get out, essentially, because they are selling animals as sacrifices, because during that time, you had to have an unblemished animal, like an unblemished dove, and chances are you would not be able to offer that animal unless it was actually unblemished. So they were selling animals, and they were converting foreign currency into the currency that was actually accepted, and it was just a hot mess. And Jesus was so upset, and he was like, you're literally making my Father's house a den of thieves, and kicked everybody out. So as we can see that Jesus is a man of integrity, and a true leader is someone that is not easily swayed by money. You can't buy anything. They know that what they stand for is what they stand for, and they make decisions that are in the best interest of the people that they serve, and not necessarily what's in the best interest in their pocket. So one of the ways in which you can recognize a true leader is when you realize that they are not easily swayed by money, and when they have the utmost integrity. All right, so the fourth characteristic of a great leader is someone who values wise counsel. So a true leader is someone who not only has a lot of counselors around them and a lot of advisors that help them to make those just decisions, but they also listen. So the Bible talks a lot about having wise and godly counsel, especially in Proverbs. So in Proverbs chapter 11, verse 14, it says, where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in an abundance of counselors, there is safety. So as you can see, it says it right there in Proverbs, with many advisors, there is safety. Without any advisors or many wise advisors, a nation falls. So we're going to be taking a look at King Rehoboam, who is actually King Solomon's son. So I actually like King Solomon, but he had a son who was a hot mess. And this is what happened. So King Rehoboam was a new king, and the people that he ruled came to him, and they're like, hey, your dad was a little harsh on us. We need you to lighten up a little bit. Can you do something for us, because we need some help here? And King Rehoboam was like, okay, let me think about it. Come back to me in 3 days and see what I say. So King Rehoboam goes to his wise counselors, and this is what happens. So in 1 Kings chapter 12, verses 6 through 8, it says, then King Rehoboam consulted the elders who had served his father Solomon during his lifetime. How would you advise me to answer these people, he asked. They replied, if today you will be a servant to these people and serve them and give them a favorable answer, they will always be your servants. So he goes to his advisors and he asks them, and they said, hey, just be a servant. We went over that in the first point, is to have a servant's heart. And they said, if you truly want to serve them, then you'll be their king forever. But King Rehoboam actually rejected this advice. So in verse 8, this is what happens. But Rehoboam rejected the advice the elders gave him and consulted the young men who he had grown up with and were serving him. So King Rehoboam, Solomon's son, rejected that advice, and he actually went to his friends to get some advice, and they gave him terrible advice, and this is what they say. So in verse 10 it says, the young men replied, this is what you should tell those little complainers who want a lighter burden. My little finger is thicker than my father's waist. Yes, my father laid heavy burdens on you, but I'm going to make them even heavier. My father beat you with whips, but I will beat you with scorpions. Dang, that's harsh. So King Rehoboam rejected the wise counselor's advice, and he went with his friends and he said, yeah, my father beat you with whips, I'm going to beat you with scorpions. Who says that? So the people go back to him 3 days later, and they ask him what he thought, and he said that he literally said the same thing, word for word. This is what he says. So in verse 14 it says, he followed the advice of the young men and said, my father made your yoke heavy, I will make it even heavier. My father scourged you with whips, I will scourge you with scorpions. So dumb, so stupid. So eventually King Rehoboam loses his throne and someone else takes over. But that's essentially what happens when you are a bad leader. God dethrones you and takes away your leadership position. So as a leader, if you don't make good decisions, if you don't follow wisely counsel and godly advice, then eventually you will be overthrown and someone else will become a new leader. So one of the ways in which you can truly determine who is a good leader is you need to ask yourself, are they surrounded by many counselors and advisors? And it's not just enough to have counselors and advisors. They need to be wise and they need to be led by God. So that is one of the ways in which you can determine whether or not you are a good leader or if you are working for someone who is a good leader. So always remember that. So the fifth way in which you can determine whether or not someone is a great leader is by the fruit that they bear. And this is what I mean by that. So essentially whether or not you have a relationship with God. And you can tell whether or not someone has a relationship with God based on their personality and their characteristics. And this is what we call the fruit of the Spirit. So check this out. So in Matthew chapter 7, verse 15 through 18, it says, "Watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. By their fruit you will recognize them. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit." So as you can see from the scripture, it says a good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. So it talks about the fruits of the Spirit in Galatians. So in Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 through 23, it says, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law." So as you can see, you will be able to determine a great leader by the fruit that they bear. Are they joyful? Do they have love in their heart? Are they patient? Do they like to have peace? Are they faithful? Are they kind? Do they say bad things about someone else? You're able to determine a great leader by the kind of fruit that they bear, because a good fruit does not bear bad fruit, and a bad fruit does not bear good fruit. So always remember that is a true character quality of a great leader. Also, a great leader has a strong relationship with God. So Jesus is the ultimate example of someone who had a strong relationship with God. And when you have a strong relationship with God, God will help you navigate through your leadership abilities to make those really important decisions. So an example of this is when Jesus began to choose his disciples, he actually prayed and spent time with God all night before he determined who would be his disciples. So check this out. So it says in Luke chapter 6, verses 12 through 13, "One day soon afterward, Jesus went up on a mountain to pray, and he prayed to God all night. At daybreak, he called together all of his disciples and chose 12 of them to be apostles." So Jesus was a man of God, and before he made those really important decisions, he actually prayed about them. And that is what a great leader does. A great leader has a strong relationship with God, and they're able to make those really difficult decisions because they are led by God after they pray and consult with God about them. All right, so these are the top 5 qualities of a great leader. So if you are stuck within this election and wondering who you should vote for, ask yourself, does my presidential candidate, do they have a servant's heart? Do they have integrity? Do they make wise and just decisions? Do they seek and follow wisely counsel and advice? Do they have a strong relationship with God? All these things are important to look for when determining who will be your next president. And also within yourself, if you are a leader or someone who is in a position of power, ask yourself, do you have these character qualities as well? So I'm going to leave you with this last piece of advice. So in Proverbs chapter 29, verse 2, it says, "When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked bear the rule, the people mourn." Ask yourself, are there people rejoicing in countries? Are there people rejoicing in our country right now? People rejoice and people mourn based on the kind of leadership that's in power. So understand that there is going to be a lot of peace when you elect the right official to be your next president. So I hope this helps, and be smart, be wise, and make those just decisions. All right? Well, I love you guys, and I will talk with you later.